Does God have a sense of humor? Think he does. Because the story of Joel Osteen, one of the most powerful and wealthy pastors in American history, just got blown wide open by the one person who was supposed to stay silent forever. His own bodyguard. And what he revealed changes everything. The stories don't match the sermons. $600,000 vanished from a church safe. Money was stuffed inside a bathroom wall and left there for 7 years. A plumber stumbled onto what a thief never came back to collect. And Houston police still cannot explain what really happened. So ask yourself, why would a man of God need that much protection? And what exactly was being protected? Joel Scott Osteen was born on March 5, 1963, in Houston, Texas. He was one of 6 children raised in a family already deep in ministry. His father, John Osteen, had built Lakewood Church from nothing, literally from an abandoned feed store in northeast Houston, back on May 10, 1959. John was no ordinary local preacher. He had been a Southern Baptist minister, ordained before he even turned 18. Then in 1958, after what he described as a personal encounter with the Holy Spirit, everything about his faith shifted. He went bigger. He wrote more than 45 books. He hosted a television program that reached nearly 100 countries. And by the late 1990s, Lakewood had grown to around 15,000 members. Joel was never supposed to be the face of all that. He was the quiet one, the background guy. He went off to Oral Roberts University in Tulsa to study radio and television communications, but he never finished his degree. After about a year, he came back to Houston, and that decision quietly shaped the next 2 decades of his life. From 1982 all the way to 1999, Joel worked behind the scenes running Lakewood's television production. He produced his father's sermons. He was actually the one who pushed John to launch a TV ministry in the first place, even when John was hesitant, because televangelists like Jim Bakker and Jimmy Swaggart had already made that world look dangerous and scandal-ridden. During those same years, Joel's personal life was taking shape too. He married Victoria on April 4, 1987. Together they had 2 children, Jonathan and Alexandra. Life was steady, predictable. And then, in a matter of days, everything changed. On January 17, 1999, Joel Osteen stepped up to preach his very first sermon. He had never done it before. He was so nervous that he literally wore his father's shoes to feel connected to him. John Osteen listened from his hospital bed by telephone. 6 days later, on January 23, 1999, John Osteen died of a heart attack. He was 77 years old. That loss hit Lakewood like a shockwave. And by October 3 of that same year, Joel, a man with no seminary degree, no theological training, and exactly 1 sermon under his belt, was named senior pastor of one of the most prominent churches in America. It was one of the most dramatic rises in the history of American religion. The transition was not smooth. Inside the family, others had expected to step into that role. Gary Simons, Joel's brother-in-law, had served as youth pastor and worship leader. He was reportedly deeply disappointed when he was passed over. He eventually left and started his own church, High Point Church in Arlington, Texas. Jim Graff, married to Joel's sister Tamara, was also seen as a contender. A 2005 Texas Monthly profile summed it up perfectly. The mom was the CEO, Joel was the front man, and the siblings and spouses each controlled their own piece of the operation. Joel hadn't just inherited a church. He had stepped into a pulpit, a family system, and a growing religious empire all at once. When he took over, weekly attendance sat somewhere between 6,000 and 8,000. What happened next was not gradual growth. It was an explosion. Attendance eventually climbed past 45,000 people every single week, spread across 4 English services and 2 Spanish services. The physical symbol of that growth was impossible to miss. In 2001, Lakewood signed a 30-year lease on the former Compaq Center, the same arena that had once been home to the Houston Rockets during their back-to-back championship seasons in 1994 and 1995. They paid $1.8 million upfront. The move was bold. It was expensive. And it was controversial. Crescent Real Estate Equities sued the city, arguing the lease blurred the line between church and state. The fight was only settled after Houston agreed to purchase 5.5 acres from Crescent for $33 million. Lakewood then poured another $15 million into renovations over 15 months. On July 16, 2005, Lakewood moved into its new home, 606,000 square feet of arena space, with 16,800 seats. But the controversy didn't end there. In March 2010, the Houston City Council voted 13-2 to sell the property outright to Lakewood for just $7.5 million. Critics called it a sweetheart deal. One appraiser said no ordinary person could look at that price and call it a normal sale. Still, the deal held. And in December 2023, Lakewood announced its $100 million construction loan had been fully paid off. As the church grew, so did the questions about Joel's personal wealth. During the Hurricane Harvey backlash in 2017, estimates placed his net worth around $40 million. By 2019, USA Today put it closer to $50 million. More recent sources now put the figure at around $100 million, though Snopes has noted that none of these numbers come with verified sourcing. The exact total remains unknown. What is not unknown is where much of that wealth came from. Since 2004, Osteen has published 26 books. 7 of them hit #1 on the New York Times bestseller list. Together they have sold more than 20 million copies. His first major hit, Your Best Life Now, published in October 2004, debuted at #1 and stayed on the self-help list for more than 200 weeks. It sold over 10 million copies in the United States alone. His follow-up, Become a Better You, came with a reported advance of somewhere between $8.5 million and $13 million. The New York Times called it potentially one of the richest deals ever for a non-fiction book. A 2009 Forbes note suggested it may have reached as high as $13 million. Osteen did once take a salary from Lakewood, around $200,000 a year, but stopped in 2005 once the book money started flowing. He later told the Christian Post that he and Victoria had never imagined being blessed the way they had been. His income now comes from speaking engagements reportedly paying between $100,000 and $200,000 per appearance, a SiriusXM radio channel that launched in 2014, a podcast averaging over 11 million downloads a month, and television broadcasts reaching more than 100 countries with an estimated 7 million weekly viewers. That success shows up in how the Osteen family lives. Their primary home is a 17,000-square-foot mansion at 3960 Del Monte Drive in the River Oaks neighborhood of Houston, one of the most exclusive zip codes in the entire country. They purchased it in 2010 for $10.5 million. The house was originally built in 1937 and sits on nearly 2 acres. It has 6 bedrooms, 6 full bathrooms, 3 half baths, 3 elevators, 5 wood-burning fireplaces, a guest house, a pool house, a swimming pool, and garage space for up to 20 cars. Current estimates put its value between $14 and $16 million. Property taxes alone run about $247,000 a year. The Osteens also still own their previous home in the Tanglewood neighborhood, a 5,600-square-foot house appraised at around $2.9 million. As for the rumors, no, he does not own a $325,000 Ferrari. Snopes investigated in 2021 and found no credible evidence. The viral photos circulating online were taken in Florida and Switzerland with no connection to Osteen whatsoever. His team has also denied owning a yacht or private jet. A claim about an $86 million Airbus aircraft has similarly been debunked by his own representatives. Now here is where the story gets strange. Sometime between the afternoon of Sunday, March 9, 2014, and the morning of Monday, March 10, approximately $600,000 disappeared from a safe inside Lakewood Church. That included $200,000 in cash and $400,000 in checks, all weekend offering collections. A church employee and an off-duty Harris County Sheriff's deputy discovered the theft. Lakewood quickly sent letters to its 40,000-plus members assuring them the funds were fully insured. Crime Stoppers offered a $5,000 reward. Lakewood added $20,000 more. Total reward, $25,000. And yet, nobody was ever arrested. The case went cold. 7 years passed. Then on November 10, 2021, a plumber named Justin Colley was doing routine work on a loose toilet in a single-use family restroom inside the church. As he and a co-worker pulled the toilet away from the wall and moved some insulation aside, approximately 500 envelopes came tumbling out of the wall cavity. Inside, cash, checks, and money orders. Some of those checks were dated March 9, 2014. The exact date of the original theft. Houston police confirmed the connection. They never disclosed exactly how much of the missing money had been recovered. The case might have stayed quiet if Colley hadn't called into a local radio show, The Morning Bullpen on 100.3 The Bull, during a segment asking listeners about the most valuable thing they had ever found. That phone call went viral almost instantly. The hashtag #GetJustinPaid exploded across social media. At first, Crime Stoppers said Colley didn't qualify for the reward. The statute of limitations had expired, and finding the money wasn't the same as identifying the thief. But public pressure kept building. On December 7, Crime Stoppers CEO Renee Mangrum got unanimous approval to award Colley the $20,000 that Lakewood had originally donated to Crime Stoppers back in 2016. Colley told KPRC the money would help a lot since bills were piling up and work had slowed down. He also said he planned to donate some of it back to Crime Stoppers and the Houston SPCA. Lakewood's response was strikingly quiet. Spokeswoman Andrea Davis said only that they appreciated the plumber and hoped he would pay the gift forward. On that same day, Osteen posted a vague message online about not letting what others say define you. He never directly addressed the discovery publicly. And the haunting question that radio host George Lindsay first raised out loud still has no answer. Who hid that money inside the wall, and why did they never come back for it? The Houston police investigation remains open to this day. No moment damaged Joel Osteen's public image more than Hurricane Harvey. The storm made landfall near Rockport, Texas on August 25, 2017 as a Category 4 hurricane with sustained winds of 130 miles per hour. It was the first major hurricane to hit the United States since 2005. But the wind was only part of the catastrophe. Harvey stalled over southeast Texas and dropped more than 50 inches of rain in some areas. Harris County estimated that 1 trillion gallons of water fell in just 4 days, flooding roughly 70% of the county by at least 18 inches. As Houston drowned, Osteen posted on Saturday, August 26 that he and Victoria were praying for those affected. The next day, Lakewood posted on Facebook that the church was inaccessible due to flooding and directed people to other shelters. That statement landed like a bomb. Because at the same time, local businessman Jim McKingvale, better known as Mattress Mac, had already opened his gallery furniture stores as emergency shelters and was personally sending trucks out to rescue stranded residents. One response felt immediate and human. The other felt distant and managed. By Monday, August 28, the backlash had gone national. People began sharing photos and videos suggesting the church and surrounding area looked far drier than Lakewood's statement implied. Critics accused Osteen of keeping a 16,800-seat arena closed while thousands of people had nowhere to go. Writer Charles Cleaver said Osteen's account had blocked him when he tried to verify whether the church was actually flooded. Mark Elliott pointed out the contrast between Osteen's $50 million net worth and the church's apparent inaction. Doug Keegan's viral post said it plainly. Houston would remember that Mattress Mac opened his doors while Joel Osteen kept Lakewood closed. On December 19, 2005, Victoria Osteen boarded Continental Airlines Flight 6002 from Houston to Vail, Colorado. What should have been a routine first-class flight became a public scandal that followed her for years. The trouble started with a liquid spill on her armrest. Flight attendant Sharon Brown later testified that Victoria became agitated when the mess wasn't cleaned up fast enough. According to the FAA report and Brown's own account, things escalated quickly. Brown said Victoria grabbed another flight attendant named Johnson, shoved Brown against a bathroom door, elbowed her in the chest, and even attempted to move toward the cockpit. Johnson, testifying by video, corroborated much of that account, adding that Victoria became verbally and physically abusive when she didn't get what she wanted. Johnson also suggested race played a role, saying Victoria seemed willing to deal only with Johnson, who is white, and not with Brown or another flight attendant, both of whom are black. The flight was delayed 2.5 hours. Victoria told a completely different story. She said she calmly asked about the spill, was handed napkins by a crew member who said it wasn't their job to clean it, and then Brown flung her hands at her. Victoria later testified, "It freaked me out. I asked a simple question." Despite her denial, the FAA fined her $3,000 for interfering with a crew member. Her attorney Rusty Hardin said she paid the fine not as an admission of guilt but to spare her church further embarrassment. The matter didn't end there. Sharon Brown filed a civil lawsuit seeking at least $45,000 in actual damages plus punitive damages equal to 10% of Victoria Osteen's net worth. Brown claimed the incident left her with depression, PTSD, anxiety, and physical ailments. Her psychiatrist testified she felt deeply disrespected both as a professional and as a black woman. The defense fought back hard, bringing in a former Continental flight attendant named Claudia Hall, who testified by video that Brown had falsely accused her of assault back in 1995. Then a 2007 deposition came out in which Brown had called the Osteens the devil and their church a cult. By the time the case reached trial in August 2008, it had become a full spectacle. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours before ruling unanimously that Victoria Osteen did not commit assault. The jury foreman didn't mince words. He said if they could have found a way to make the Osteens whole for their legal costs, they would have, because the whole case was a complete waste of time. Rusty Hardin called it an attempted extortion from the start. When it was over, Victoria told reporters through tears, "I stood strong because I believe in the truth." The lawsuits and controversies have always circled back to one central issue: money, and how little of it the public can actually trace. Lakewood is a 501(c)(3) religious organization, which means it is automatically exempt from filing a Form 990 with the IRS, the financial disclosure form that most nonprofits are required to submit. That exemption means the church has no legal obligation to show the public where its money goes. In 2023, Ministry Watch gave Lakewood an F for financial transparency after the church failed to respond to requests for information. The most detailed look anyone has gotten came from a Houston Chronicle investigation using financial statements for the fiscal year ending March 2017. Those records showed Lakewood brought in $89 million that year, with over 90% coming from donations. Of that, $31.7 million went to weekly services and programs, $25.1 million went to the television ministry, $11.5 million to general and administrative costs, $6.7 million to Night of Hope events, and $1.9 million to fundraising. Mission and outreach, the work most people associate with a church's core purpose, received just $1.2 million. That's less than 1.4% of the total budget. For critics, that number said everything. Lakewood employs around 368 staff members and takes in enough in a single weekend to fill a church safe with $600,000. Night of Hope Stadium events charge $15 a ticket, adding yet another revenue stream on top of everything else. During the COVID-19 pandemic, Lakewood accepted $4.4 million in PPP and CARES Act loans through Bank of America in July 2020. The backlash was instant. Joel Osteen trended on Twitter. The church responded by saying neither Joel nor Victoria personally received any of the funds, and that the money went strictly to employee payroll. Eventually, Lakewood repaid the full $4.4 million without seeking forgiveness, beginning those repayments in January 2021. Notably, Lakewood was not among the 6 megachurch ministries investigated by Senator Chuck Grassley between 2007 and 2011. That probe targeted Benny Hinn, Paula White, Eddie Long, Joyce Meyer, Creflo Dollar, and Kenneth Copeland over questions about private jets, luxury homes, and personal enrichment. No penalties were ultimately handed down, but the investigation concluded with a recommendation that churches should no longer be exempt from filing Form 990. That recommendation went nowhere, and the transparency debate around Lakewood has never gone away. Beyond the money, Osteen has faced some of the most blistering theological criticism ever directed at an American pastor. John MacArthur of Grace Community Church called Osteen a pagan religionist and a quasi-pantheist, and said that in Osteen's teaching, Jesus is little more than a footnote used to quiet critics. Speaking about Your Best Life Now, MacArthur delivered one of his most quoted lines, that the title itself should be a warning, because the only way this life could be your best life is if you're going to hell. He went further, comparing Osteen's promises to Satan's temptations of Christ and calling the entire theology satanic. Albert Mohler, president of the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary, has been equally relentless. He called Osteen's message the slickest and most polished version of prosperity theology in America, and labeled it an American heresy. Mohler argued the real danger isn't that prosperity theology promises too much, but that it aims far too low, trading genuine faith for a shallow promise of comfort and success. When Victoria Osteen told a 2014 congregation that obeying God isn't really for God but for yourself, Mohler responded with what became one of his most repeated criticisms, that if a message can't be preached with credibility in Mosul, it shouldn't be preached in Houston. He also famously described Osteen's portrayal of God as that of a cosmic butler, always on standby to serve human desire. Rick Warren of Saddleback Church told Time magazine in 2006 that the idea God wants everyone to be wealthy was simply baloney and a false idol. Michael Horton of Westminster Seminary devoted an entire chapter of his 2008 book, Christless Christianity, to Osteen, and appeared on 60 Minutes on October 14, 2007 to call Osteen's message outright heresy, arguing it turns Christianity into something almost unrecognizable. Across every one of these critics, the same themes repeat. Jesus rarely appears in Osteen's books, there is no cross on his stage, sin and repentance and hell almost never come up, and the man leading one of the largest churches in the world has no formal theological training whatsoever. In their view, he took a faith built on sacrifice and redemption and turned it into motivational self-help with a Christian label attached. Osteen has never pretended otherwise. He has said people have already been beaten down enough. He told Larry King he sees himself not as a theologian but as a coach, a motivator helping people experience the life God intended for them. Inside the church itself, the picture is complicated. Several high-profile figures have come and gone. Gary Simons left after being passed over for senior pastor. John Gray, the first black pastor on Lakewood's leadership team, served from 2012 to 2018 before leaving on good terms to lead his own church in South Carolina, only to later face his own scandals involving a $200,000 Lamborghini and infidelity allegations. Marcos Witt, the Latin Grammy-winning worship leader who ran Lakewood's Hispanic ministry from 2002 to 2012, also moved on. Then there are the ordinary employees. Anonymous reviews on Glassdoor and Indeed paint a picture that looks nothing like the polished stage on Sunday mornings. The same complaints come up over and over: low pay, nepotism, no real path for advancement. One former staffer wrote that promotion was nearly impossible and that being family-owned meant nepotism moved fast through the organization. Another described being constantly overworked and surrounded by rude and entitled colleagues. Even so, Lakewood holds a 3.8 out of 5 rating on Glassdoor, with 71% of reviewers saying they would recommend it as a place to work. Even inside these walls, the story refuses to be simple. And with Lakewood, it never really has been.